Hi, I'm Deborah Holchin, editor of Michigan Today. In this episode of Listen in Michigan, you are going to meet the Squirrel Man, also known as Corey Seeman, director of Kresge Library Services at the Michigan Ross School of Business. Corey has always been interested in photography and was just starting to observe the campus squirrels when he got a digital camera in 2007. By 2008, he was all in, and he challenged himself to take at least one photo per day of a squirrel, and he has not stopped since. Most of his subjects shelter in cavity nests, those holes you see in trees, and Corey always has a pocket full of peanuts as he makes a loop or two around the Law Quad, over to Lorch Hall, and up to Angel and Mason. Sometimes you'll see him on the Diag taking pictures of the eastern fox squirrels. Those are the bigger, more pet-like ones. And campus is also home to the eastern gray, which sometimes appears black, and the red squirrel. Each is more photogenic than the rest. And taking pictures of the squirrels is a happy diversion, Corey says, especially if he's having kind of a bad day. I recently joined him in the Law Quad and at Martha Cook. It was 18 degrees and quite windy, but the squirrels were out in force, delighted to see their friend in the brown leather jacket and pose for yet another close-up. Here's Corey.
So I did look up how many squirrel pictures I took, and it's like 68,000.
Wow.
Just really, okay, so I was thinking if there was like 100, that's okay. You know, you take 100 pictures. It's 1,000, that's weird. But it gets to a certain number that it becomes impressive. And so that's what I'm hoping for. And the thing that I just love is being able to find a squirrel for almost any mood, in any picture. You know, for me, the squirrels are just a fantastic subject. So if I have to take a picture every day, I need to find something that is interesting. Mm-hmm. And so the squirrels always give me something different. There's a different lighting, there's different weather, there's different look. Yeah. Every day, I always have a handful of photos that I think, these are good. The thing that's really funny is if you asked me in 2008, list 10,000 things about me, squirrel would never come up.
Now it's 15, the first thing.
It's the absolute first thing. And it's weird. It's on my license plate. It is on my business card, my luggage tag. And I wish I was as well known as a librarian as I am as a squirrel photographer, but I figure you can take what you can get.
This is a good spot.
Yeah.
Jackpot. All right. Gus. Whoa! Just hanging on by his back feet. For that, you deserve a treat. And you can go make sweet love.
Well, I've seen squirrels attack hawks, and I never thought but it's always the mamas. There are more deadbeat dads in the squirrel community than anywhere else. They're really quite horrible. But one of the things, I was over behind the art museum, and there's 3 statues by Donner, I think the artist's name is, and there was a squirrel nest in one of them, and there were some babies in there, and they were chirping. And the mama didn't like that because I was kind of poking around, and she, unlike some squirrels that climb me for whatever reason, I don't know what they're looking for. There was something very aggressive. I was too close to the nest, and I was being shooed away, and it was hilarious.
What did she do?
She ran up my leg, and I realized that this wasn't a nice.
Hey, Corey.
It wasn't a nice hug. It was more like a grab, and so I kind of moved, and she dropped down, and then she did it again, and she dropped down, and she did it again.
No way.
And so she basically sent me all the way to the Diag. I was cracking up. But I didn't want to actually get on her total bad side.
Yeah, because you wanted to come back and see if those 2 little heads were going to poke out.
Yeah, and they did. And she, I was apparently it was just I wasn't banned for life. I was just banned for that moment. But the mamas are they're very, very protective, and I've seen them go after hawks. Just
brave. Yeah, they're not messing around.
The snow does just fantastic.
There's 3 pictures I want to talk about. One is the picture in the Hardy Mums out in front of Ross. I took that in 2015.
Okay.
in the autumn. There's a squirrel in there. I was trying to coax him out, and he poked his head up, and I got a picture. And that's the one that actually was it was the runner-up in the 2018 Washington Post Squirrel Week photo contest. And then the Detroit News had a contest. It was the People's Choice winner for the Michigan Woods and Wildlife photo contest.
Right on.
So I was really excited about that. The second one was just in the Comedy Wildlife Photography Awards. I was selected as a finalist, and then I was highly commended. So they took down a tree at Law. It had died, but there was a cavity nest, and there was a squirrel. And I knew that the squirrel was living in there. And occasionally when squirrels come out of their nest, they give a big hairy yawn. It's like they wake up and they go, ah! This squirrel, I just caught it perfectly. And not only was he giving a huge yawn, but he was extending his right paw out, his or her. And it just looked like he was like, hey, I'm up here, I'm up here. And so that picture was one of my favorites. And so those two have actually done fairly well in the squirrel photography circuit, which I'm learning about. And then
Which you are the king of.
Yeah, who knows? Well,
in my eyes.
Oh, thank you. There's one picture I just adore. It was taken in a cavity nest last year, I think it was. And there was a mother squirrel and a juvenile. And the juvenile was kind of leaning out. And the mother was just putting her paw on his head, his or her head, just to say, I think we're just going to wait and see what kind of person this is. And it's just, it's
precious.
I love that picture so
Yeah.
much. And then every day I end up with one that I really like. There's the wildflowers that spring up behind Martha Cook, and they come up for about a week, and they're beautiful and it's blue, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And so if you can get the squirrel during that time, it's really fantastic.
I always love the ones too with the red berries against the white snow and stuff like that. They're just so vivid and fresh looking, So cute.
I've seen them with a churro, with a cookie, with a pizza, and I couldn't get pizza squirrel to get to be a bigger thing. And then I've seen a hoagie. It was like it was a freezing cold day, and there was a hoagie, and it was about maybe 6 inches, and the squirrel's just going, this is a happy day. And then on the other side, so squirrels are scavengers, and they'll eat stuff out of garbage cans, and it's great. And I saw a squirrel eating a starling. Now, starlings are not my favorite birds. They're invasive, but it's just like,
Ew.
yeah. And I kind of was like, what's that squirrel eating?
Yeah.
And I got closer, and I'm like, oh, and the squirrel's just going, so.
Come on, little buddy. Are you going to talk to me
Just
now?
be super still.
Want a little peanut? How would you describe the nature of the U of M squirrel to someone from Mars who had no idea what they were dealing with?
Oh, gosh. I'd say they come in peace. That much has to be said right off the bat. One of the things is that I've been at the University of Washington. They have great squirrels at NYU and in Washington Square Park. Fantastic. NYU's maybe a bad example. Most of the campuses, squirrels are very kind of skittish, and they'll run off. A lot of eastern grays tend to be more skittish. The difference with the fox squirrels, especially the ones here, is they tame up. So as the juveniles, they don't, maybe tame up is not the best phrase.
But they're not so afraid of humans or...
No.
Yeah, obviously.
And what happens is they learn that people can be trusted.
Oh, you little devils.
And so in my backyard, you would think that I would be like St. Francis of Assisi and have all the squirrels come. Squirrels take off. And this is long before we had the dog. And squirrels just don't come to my feeder. And so I'm like the one place in America where I don't have any of those anti-squirrel feeders.
Yes.
It's like, come, please. And they just don't.
Clearly, they all have different tastes.
Yes.
Some like bird. But what about like personalities and stuff? You must have names, and do you have little families that you follow? Like, do you know who they are? And can you tell by the way they act who they are? I don't know.
Every so often, I think I can. So I have this fantasy. I have a very rich fantasy world, and in that fantasy, a squirrel sees me coming, and they see my brown leather jacket that I've been wearing every winter since like the last 20 years, and they're like, "Oh, I know that guy. He's got peanuts." But I think they go for the behavior. Someone who's stopping,
Okay.
and they're like, "Oh, they're stopping. This could be good. They may have some food," and I'm going to run up. And so it's not me;
Yeah.
it's them. We do have a 3-pawed squirrel on campus.
No way.
Yes,
Where does it live?
she lives off of South U.
Okay.
And
3
I've seen her-
paws.
Yeah, she's missing the front right paw.
Okay.
So she has 2 names. Friends of mine over in the art school or in the art history department and the president's house call her Tripod. I call her Lefty.
Cute.
She is awesome, not deterred a bit, can climb up and down trees, does amazing. And the first time I saw her, it's just like you're looking, you don't know whether she's pulling her paw in or if she's actually missing. Have no idea how it happened. I'm sure it was a hawk or something equally bad, but she climbs, she eats, she does really well, and I've been able to take a lot of pictures of her over the years. She's my favorite because she is just wonderful, and every day I see her, it's really kind of good luck. And I've seen her now for about over a year and a half, so I don't know how old she is, but she's pretty recognizable.
Yeah. Ooh,
And
I'm
so-
going to keep an eye out for her.
and the squirrels will stay in a pretty tight area.
Okay.
So I've seen her in Law Quad behind Martha Cook, and then in front of Clements and the president's house, but
Okay.
not really anywhere besides that.
Keep your eye out for Lefty.
Yeah.
She's out there.
She's
Oh,
out there, and she could always use a peanut. Any of them could always use a peanut
Yeah.
or some food.
Basically, just, she's never more than, I guess, 50 yards from South U that I've seen. Maybe she goes elsewhere.
Should we go look for her?
I saw her here yesterday.
But I typically don't name
Just because
the
you don't want to
squirrels.
get attached to them or it's too confusing? I like
It's way too confusing.
Yeah.
Every so often you'll see a color variation. Maybe they have a white spot on their neck, and so you're like, oh, okay, I know who that might be.
That helps.
But it's
Yeah.
very, very tricky. The squirrels on campus are so friendly, and they're so different, and they're very interested in you. They're probably interested in you because you're a source of food. And the thing I like to do is what I call squirrel diplomacy. And so if I see someone who's like, you can always tell the people who are just here for the first time, like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's like, would you like to feed them? And so I always have enough peanuts in my blue bag to basically hook people
Yes. We actually had a dog in LA that saved a baby squirrel, and we took it to the squirrel lady, and she revived it. Like she fostered it.
up. There are squirrel people there's all sorts of wonderful people I know on campus, but there's also the Friends of Michigan, Michigan Friends of Wildlife. And they've actually hooked me up with medicated pecans. So as I spot squirrels that have mange, so they have bald spots, I can hook them up with medicine, and I carry it around with me. It's there, and at first I thought, oh, it's really hard because you have to give them this pecan and then give it to them again at the end of like 7 days. But it's actually not that hard. As long as the mange is pretty isolated, you can tell which one, and they typically will stay in the same area.
Okay, that makes
So
sense.
I've been spending a lot more
Good for
time
you.
with the people who rehabilitate, and it's just it's nice because if you're bald and you should have fur and it's 10 degrees out, it's probably going to be a cruddy day.
Squirrels in snow are just my favorite pictures. They're
Yeah,
just-
they're so vivid and
they look like an extra layer of cute when they're sitting there. They've got their arms folded in and it's cold.
I don't know. What can we learn from squirrels? Like, what have you learned from squirrels over the years of observing them?
Well, I've learned a lot about squirrels, but the thing I've learned the most about, and this is kind of weird, I've learned how information flows. And this has been really fascinating because I'm a librarian. my interest in squirrels and my interest in social media sort of rose up at about the same time. So all of a sudden you realize there's thousands of people on Twitter and on Instagram and on Facebook who love squirrels. And so you can see how information sharing can actually work. And some of my most popular, most of my tweets are just stupid. But
They're entertaining.
Oh, well, thank you.
And bring us joy.
Extremely generous. I think it's fascinating, and certainly from a librarian standpoint. And then the other thing is how things are tagged to make things findable. And that's something that librarians are fascinated with, especially because you could stumble on a book on a shelf, but you can't stumble on a digital image because they're not really tagged in unless you actually do it. I mean, you can have some computer recognition that can say, yes, this is a picture of a plug and an earphone, but it won't really give the context. So the way that Flickr works is it does a very good job of pushing photos out into search engines. And so to be able to see my squirrels and my other pictures, because I do take pictures of other things. Squirrels are my favorites. But to see how they are found is really, I think, quite fascinating.
What an interesting connection.
And the reach. We think about the photos that are sitting in boxes, and my photos may not be the very best squirrel photos, but they've been viewed by people all over creation, and I think it's kind of fun. I was in Western Maryland, and I saw a postcard, and it said, the squirrels at the University of Michigan. And it was fascinating. And I was just like, oh, my God, this is great. And that was sort of a reminder that, you're really just part of a long cycle. This is to basically carry forward this tradition that people have been feeding the squirrels and taking care of the squirrels. The squirrels are the one thing on campus. Everyone, you have business school students here, law school students, graduates, undergraduates, in stats, and everyone's got all these different programs. You're under a lot of pressures. But the squirrels and football are the two things that pretty much everyone can have in common. And you have students who don't like football, but most people like the squirrels. And it's at least something that people remember. And it's always great. And I love this in photography. It's always great to capture things that people may not notice. There's a cavity nest in the side of Hatcher Library, high in the brickworks.
Okay.
And people aren't looking for that. And so if you can capture and share, it provides just a little bit of levity, hopefully, in people's days. So if they're stressing about exams, finals, even if you're not going to do it, but only once, just to go out, grab a handful of peanuts or maybe some pizza crust, and you're going to make a squirrel very happy.
That's really why we're here, I think.
That's why I'm here.
And
I have another job, I know, but
that gets done. You get your work done. You still go have some fun with some squirrels. Well, the squirrels are fed and snug in their cavity nests, and Corey has a new batch of images to comb through on this cold winter day. His love for nature is undeniable. He's so compassionate toward our furry little friends on campus. Well, I hope you all have a happy holiday, and we'll be back next year with more episodes of Listen in Michigan. My colleague here, Mike Wood, will debut his podcast, Michigan News Beyond the Headlines, in January. His first guest will be alumna and law professor Barb McQuaid, who often appears on MSNBC as a contributing expert. So get ready for that. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks for listening, and find Listen in Michigan and subscribe at Google Play Music, iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, and anywhere else you can find podcasts. Okay, I've got a pocket full of peanuts, and I'm going to look for Lefty. See you next year, and as always, go blue.